Why did I decide to become an author? This is a question not a lot of people ask me, but I'm going to spend the next few minutes answering because I clearly think it's important. It all starts in the world of fanfiction, specifically Harry Potter fanfiction, and to be even more specific, Marauder era fanfiction, because at the time I was a James and Lily stan, and I could not get enough of that. 16-year-old Amelia could not get enough of those two. Little goody two-shoes, Lily Evans, and bad boy James Potter, who clearly wants her. Also, she was a redhead. And there was a attractive man who was chasing after her. Isn't that just the dream, ladies? I also read an insane amount of Éomer Lord of the Rings fanfiction. I started out with the very basic girl gets dropped into Middle-earth, joins the Fellowship, saves all of Middle-earth, did a lot of that. That was my gateway into Lord of the Rings fanfiction. Learned some Elvish, picked it up along the way, and then discovered Éomer and Rohan. And I think because I grew up next to the mountains, I was just like, yes, I would live in Rohan too if I lived in Middle-earth. And there was a 6'5" Viking-esque man who I just also could not get enough of. So, moral of the story is 16-year-old Amelia was very lonely and just wanted some attention. She found it in fan fiction. And then it got even more niche, if you could believe it. I think it must have been around 2012. There was a movie that came out called Rise of the Guardians. And if you have not seen it, it's this animated movie where there's Jack Frost, who essentially needs to save all the holidays. It's been a minute. It's been so long. But at that time, I locked in to Jack Frost. I was so thirsty at that age. And I wrote my own fanfiction because I had this great idea of this daughter of Autumn who gets thrown into this universe, and she's also very lonely, and her and Jack Frost team up. And this story somehow ended up with, I think, like 10,000 reads on it, which was insane for my little brain, but I just really enjoyed the writing process. Wasn't even terribly long of a story. I think I got to like 40,000 words, which if you come from the world of fanfiction is absolutely nothing. But that seemed like so many words to me at that point. I have a friend who's a very successful musician now. Shout out Forrest Black, who I was living with at the time. And he, who has managed great success with his art, looked at me and was like, why don't you do this with your own story? Because I know you have stories to tell. And at the time, I think I actually laughed and said no one would want to read my stories. And do I even have a story to tell? Little did she know. I in fact did have a lot of stories to tell. I think to date I have at least 13 books worth of stories to tell with characters I love deeply. But at the time, I did not have I did not have practice in writing full novels. Forrest's words stuck with me. It was like someone dropped a seed in my brain and it planted. And it spent years then germinating and developing until I was in uni. I think it was my last year of university. I had this idea of a girl who was in a very medieval like apothecary shop, and these soldiers come in and they just rough her up. And they destroy the shop and they scare her, and that was it. I didn't know who she was, who these men were, but just this idea stuck with me. So I started to write it, and I think I wrote my first chapter late at night. I think it must have been past midnight. I was probably supposed to be writing an essay. The ideas just kept coming. The characters started to develop themselves, the plot started plotting, and before I knew it, I had written a book. I think I remember getting to what I thought would be the end of this book, and it turned to be only the middle of the actual story. And by the time I actually finished book one, this is book one of the Merrick Stones, The Wayward Thief, if you were wondering. By the time I finished it, I was like, oh, we're gonna have to write a book too. Little did I know it would end up being a 5-book series with a 3-book spin-off series. So there was a lot of story to tell just in this one world alone. But I could not have planned that. All I knew is that from the first word I wrote in fanfiction, I have come pretty far, and it was never intentional. I never set out to write a whole bunch of books to try and make anything of myself as an author. It was just something I deeply enjoyed and became very passionate about. I think it's very therapeutic for me having these books. All of my main female characters are extensions of me and my mental health. So the Merrick Stones, Maeve, if you've read the book, she is the depiction of my anxiety. She straight up has panic attacks in the book. Some of the best feedback I get is that my characters feel really real. And I take that to heart because if you've read my Curse of Midnight series, McKenna is my depression. And then my other series, which I haven't released yet, I depict my sense of loneliness and my female rage, which is a really interesting thing to talk about and will be a later video. But that's how I started. Kind of accidental, just doing something I loved. What are we at? 4 published books now, with however many waiting to be published. And hopefully we'll see the light of day. But that was my journey into becoming an author, and I look forward to seeing where this journey is going to take me. So lots more to say. I have so much to say. I'm an author. Of course I have things to say. But thank you for listening, and I've got tons more on this journey and experience I'd love to share with you all. So like and subscribe. If you go check out my shorts, I drop a lot of spooky tales from Scotland, so stay tuned for that, because who doesn't love a ghost story? This will primarily be my author channel, my Living in Edinburgh channel, but don't forget the spooks. So I'll see you around.